So now we know what a staff is, we know what the notes are and how they fit with the clefs. It's time to put all of this together in some real-world ways. While most instruments read music from a single staff using either the treble clef or the bass clef, there are instruments, for instance the piano, where the player is expected to be able to read both treble and bass clef, and in the case of the piano, the treble clef is used for the right hand and the bass clef is used for the left hand. For instruments like the piano that use two staffs with different clefs on each staff, or for groups of similar instruments, we use a special grouping of staves known as a staff system. Every staff system, whether it's the grand staff that's used by the harp or the piano, say, or it might be a group of trumpets, at the very left edge of each group of staves is a single line which connects the staves into a group. To the left of that line will be either a brace or a bracket. A brace is used to denote a grand staff, which is two staves that are intended to be played by one performer. What you see in this case is a staff system, differentiated from the grand staff by the use of a bracket rather than a brace to the left of the staff system line. In this case, all three instruments would be treble clef instruments and probably would be from the same family, say 3 trumpets, 3 flutes, or 3 clarinets. So now let's go back to our grand staff and talk about how the notes are placed on the staff. We know in the treble clef where the note G is, and we also know in the bass clef where the note F is. You may have noticed that while we have a G in the treble clef and an F in the bass clef, they're not necessarily right next to each other. If we had an F in the treble clef next to the G, it would sound like this. And if we had a G in the bass clef next to the F, it would sound like this. Although we have 2 sets of Fs and Gs, one in the treble clef and one in the bass clef, we have 2 different distinct sets of pitches where the note names are the same but the sound is quite different. I hope you'd agree that the treble clef G and F sound higher than the bass clef F and G. We'll spend more time on scientific notation later, but what you need to know for now is that the bass clef F is F3 and G is G3, and in the treble clef the notes then are G4 and F4. One last thing that we need to discuss before filling in the rest of the notes on the grand staff is something called a ledger line, which is basically an extension of the staff to use for notes that don't fit on the 5-line staff. The best example is the note middle C. You may have heard of middle C. It is the C that is the closest to the middle of a piano keyboard. In scientific notation, middle C is known as C4, and it looks like this and sounds like this. C4 is written on the treble clef as the first ledger line below the staff, and C4 is written on the bass clef as the first ledger line above the staff. Now let's take a look at the notes that are possible in the bass clef. We'll stop there for now, but keep in mind that by using ledger lines we could continue down almost infinitely. Well, at least until we got so low that the human ear couldn't hear it anymore. Now let's take a look at the notes in the treble clef. Much like the bass clef, the treble clef can be extended upward beyond A5 by the use of ledger lines, but we'll get into that another time. For now, that's it for this video. I'll see you again real soon.